One thing that we all have in common right now is that we have all been affected by the increased cost of living. Some more than others, some to the point where they're forced to sell a house or forced to make a major life change because of how expensive things have gotten. Others have barely even been fazed by it. Others have been able to live a very low-cost lifestyle for a very long time, live in a low cost of living area, and if their bills went up, it was minimal. But for pretty much everybody, it has gone up substantially. Well, just this month in May of 2025, the bill pay service DOCSO, they released their 2025 Cost of Bills Index, which breaks down comparative household costs across the country. And they focus on the 13 most common household bills, like your mortgage, your rent, auto loans, gas, electric, water and sewer, waste and recycling, auto insurance, cable, internet and phone, health insurance, mobile phone, alarm and security, and life insurance. I think they pretty much covered the gamut of what most people have to pay for. And so based on all of those household expenses, they put together the most expensive places to live versus the cheapest places to live. And I thought this would be interesting to share on the channel because a lot of people are complaining about the cost of living right now, and rightfully so. But there are places you could actually move to where the cost of living is a lot lower. But the question is, are you going to want to move there is really the thing. Now, on average, DOCSO found out that U.S. households spend roughly $25,000 annually on those 13 essential household bills. And the median mortgage payment across the country is roughly $1,800 a month, and the median rent is about $1,500 a month. And because these household bills went up so much, this is what's leading to this economic slowdown that we're experiencing right now. And we're likely to see several quarters of negative GDP due to the decrease in consumer spending. Well, this year, California dethroned Hawaii as the most expensive state based on the cost of monthly household bills. In California, residents spend on average $2,854 a month on these household bills, which is 39% above the national average. And honestly, that sounds cheap for California, if you ask me. And I know there's plenty of different places in California that are a lot cheaper than the Bay Area or coastal cities, things like that. But even still, you know, $3,000 a month sounds low for California, in my opinion, as somebody who's visited many times. To me, that sounds like you got to be living almost in poverty to be spending $3,000 a month in California. But part of the reason California is so expensive is because not only do you have the extremely high cost of housing, but literally every other single bill that we listed here is higher in California than any other state. Go figure. So the top 5 most expensive states in the country are California, Hawaii, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maryland. And I was surprised that New York didn't make the top 5 there, and obviously Florida didn't either, even though living down here is becoming almost as expensive as California, in my opinion. And now for the 3rd year in a row, West Virginia ranked as the least expensive state to live in, where the average cost of bills in West Virginia is only $11.50 per month. So we're talking $11.50 per month in West Virginia versus $28.50 per month in California. What a difference. So right now the cheapest states to live in are West Virginia, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and New Mexico. And within some of these expensive and cheaper areas, I want to give you some of the city breakdowns as well. Like, for example, the most expensive city to live in America right now is San Jose, California, right in the Bay Area. Then it's followed behind by New York City, then San Francisco, San Diego, and Boston. LA didn't even make the top 5, another big surprise. Also, it's surprising to me that Miami didn't make the top 5, but I guess you can still live in Miami for quite a bit cheaper than all of these places on the top 5. And then the cheapest places to live in the country are cities like Albuquerque, New Mexico, El Paso, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, and Cleveland, Ohio is actually the cheapest place to live, where it's 22% below the national median cost of living. So you're looking for a cheap place to live, guys? Cleveland, Ohio is where it's at. Also, if you want to look at places on a statewide index, West Virginia is the cheapest, but also you have New Mexico, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. Those are all the 5 cheapest states besides West Virginia to look at moving to as well. Like, if I had to pick one on this list, I would probably pick either New Mexico or Arkansas. And I've been to all of these states actually, except for West Virginia. As somebody who's driven back and forth across the country several times now, I've been to most of these places, and truthfully, I think a lot of people have their expectations too high with everything. I know most people want to live in a nice, expensive coastal city where the jobs are at, but that's not going to be realistic for a lot of people unless you want to spend 60 to 80 hours of your week working to make it just to keep a roof over your head, and that's not really the lifestyle most people are looking for. But I think people should be looking at relocating right now if cost of living is becoming too much of a burden for them, because there are places where you can go and lower your cost of living significantly. But a lot of people put up barriers to making this move. But you look back in history, that's what Americans did. People chased opportunities all the way across the country. That's why we have states like California and the Pacific Northwest and all of that, because people decided to go out there, be a part of the gold rush, or be a pioneer even before that, and chase a better life and better opportunities. So people should be looking at doing the same thing today, and it's way less treacherous or dangerous than it was back then. The student loan crisis, the next thing we got to talk about, because this is going to have some major implications on the economy, and it couldn't really come at a worse time, because we're already starting to see a slowdown in consumer spending, and GDP is projected to go negative once again for the second quarter of 2025. And so already the projections aren't looking good. But to add insult to injury, when we have all of these people that are not paying their student loans and are now suddenly forced to start paying them again, that's going to be a lot of spending that was going towards other things for the last 5 years essentially, now being diverted back into paying off student loan debt. Right now we have about 5.6 million student loan borrowers who were delinquent on their student loans in the first 3 months of 2025. And now that student loans are going into collections, things are starting to get serious for people. Because either way, you're paying, whether your loan goes to collections or you decide to just pay it off the way that you promised you would, that money is now no longer being spent on something else. Whatever you were spending it on before is not being spent anymore. According to Morgan Stanley, they estimate that payments this year will rise by about $1 billion to $3 billion per month, which could lower GDP by about 0.1 percentage point this year. And you can see by taking a look at this chart right here that there were actually a lot of delinquencies prior to the pandemic, and then of course everything got put on hold, and then now that it's 2025, these delinquencies are skyrocketing back to where they were pre-pandemic. And one of the big problems with all of a sudden people having to pay their bills again is people went so long without paying, basically 5 years, and now all of a sudden you're being asked to pay. Well, people kind of forgot about it. They forgot, oh yeah, I have this giant debt obligation that I haven't been forced to pay, and I'd be able to do other things with that money. Well, what are you going to do now that you've kind of bought that new car, or you bought the house and you didn't think you're ever going to have to pay back the loan, or you thought you were going to get student loan forgiveness? What happens then? And already a lot of the people who are delinquent on their loans have subprime credit, but this is going to make their credit even worse, which is going to drop people's credit scores further and put additional constraints on spending, since many borrowers who might have qualified for a credit card or an auto loan or mortgage will no longer be able to qualify. Now, anybody who thought they were just going to get completely away with this and never have to pay anything and diverted their entire monthly budget into other obligations is a fool, because that was just a bad move, knowing that one day this might creep up on you, and now that that day has come, and acting all surprised that, oh wow, now all of a sudden I have to pay this, how am I going to do it? Well, I guess you're going to have to sell that house or sell the boat or sell the car that you bought in its place, because that's going to be enough to pay for that student loan payment. And that's what happens when you promise stupid things like student loan debt forgiveness that wasn't really followed through on for a lot of people, because it leads people to build their budgets around that promise and belief that, oh yeah, I'm not gonna have to pay this back, so I might as well, lease that new car. I might as well put a down payment on the house because they're gonna forgive my student loan debt. So likely what we're probably gonna see is the delinquency rate on student loan debt continue to rise, as a lot of people just haven't put this in their budget. And you know, it's things like this that's actually prompting a lot of people out there to just turn their back on the white collar jobs and start looking at blue collar jobs instead. More and more people are actually doing this because right now, white collar work is in a recession. It's hard to get a white collar job right now. There's a lot of new competition on the block from AI. AI is replacing, you know, things that a whole team used to be able to do, and they're just not necessary anymore. You see a lot of these tech companies and a lot of big corporations laying people off and replacing them with AI. And the problem is a lot of these people were sold the lie that if you go to college for 4 years and you get that degree, you'll be indispensable, a lot more so than somebody who just has a high school diploma working a blue collar job. But these days it actually seems to be the opposite. According to the McKinsey Global Institute, advanced economies like the United States have been facing the tightest labor markets in about 2 decades, and historically high staffing shortages are persisting in certain key sectors of the economy. A lot of these areas are in things like physical and manual type of work that have been showing an increase in vacancies. In fact, some of the largest staffing gaps as we speak are in fields like construction, manufacturing, leisure and hospitality, and hands-on healthcare roles like home health aides. And by the way, check out CourseCareers if you're somebody who's looking to get into a job that's actually hiring and paying decent wages right now. They have courses on things like accounting, digital marketing, construction, electrician, HVAC, plumbing, all these types of jobs that are actually in high demand right now, physical labor jobs. They also have white collar jobs that you can learn how to do on there as well. But they'll show you which jobs are in demand right now and which jobs aren't, and which ones you're most likely to get hired at. So if you're struggling with money and you want to get a good job and not spend a ton of money on education or going back to school, check out CourseCareers. I have a link down below. And you know, to be truthful with you, I actually always enjoyed all of my physical labor jobs I had in the past, except for detailing cars. That one really sucked, actually. But, you know, working at a restaurant, running around all night wasn't bad. Time went by pretty fast, made decent money. Working on cars at an auto shop, working in the gardening section at Walmart, driving a forklift, moving things around by hand, putting things together. Those weren't bad. And it keeps you in shape. You know, if you're up moving around all day, like my dad, for example, he walks like 20,000 steps a day delivering the mail. How many people out there walk 20,000 steps a day? I don't even walk 20,000 steps a day. By the way, people have asked me about my step count in the past. I'll put up a screenshot of it for you right now because I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But on a lot of days, I do get anywhere between 10 to 15,000 steps a day, especially on the days when I'm out shooting the videos. But the reality is a lot of people don't want to work. They don't want to do the physically demanding jobs. They look down on people who do them. And they also, let's face it, they don't want to make less money because people who work the physical jobs tend to make less money than people who work the white collar jobs. But a lot of the people who have white collar jobs right now are sticking with them out of fear because they're super worried that if they move or try to get a different job, then they might not have the same opportunity. They might lose their job and lose that income and all the benefits that come along with it. And you better believe that these companies are looking at any type of AI program they can to reduce the amount of staff necessary to complete the same amount of tasks that they need to right now. And so a lot of people who have these degrees, the job opportunities are kind of drying up, and a lot of people are kind of being forced back into the blue collar sector of work if you want to find a job. And some people just get tired of the white collar jobs. You know, for example, you can be working in an environment you hate for so many years. I always think about that movie Office Space. It's such a great movie. If you've never seen it, you know, Peter's character, he works in the office, you know, and he hates his job. And towards the end of the movie, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but he ends up in a line of work that's way more blue collar and seems to be a lot happier because of it. At least in the beginning he does, because it's such a shift in lifestyle, such a shift in the type of people that you're working around and the work atmosphere and environment. It can really shake things up for you in a positive way if it's something that you want. even like me, guys, even though I don't have a job, like I'm out here shooting these YouTube videos for a long time. If you go back and look on my channel, I used to shoot all my videos inside for the most part. I'd have some B-roll shots outside here and there, but now I do all these videos outside, walking around beautiful places, walking around the neighborhoods, things like that, because you guys enjoy seeing it and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy being out here, moving around and adding a physical labor element to these videos, even though I don't have to. You know, I don't have to do this. I can just sit in front of the camera like basically everybody else does and not move. If I find it boring, I would have to find more B-roll shots to put in my videos to keep them more interesting. And instead I can just use nature and the area I'm walking through as the background, as the B-roll for your visual entertainment while you sit here and listen to me talk for 20-something minutes. So even people like me, for example, even though I can choose to stay in the AC, it's like 100 degrees out here right now. I could just be in the house, but I choose to come out here and get up and do something physical. But the fact does remain that if you do switch to a manual labor job, you are going to be taking a cut in pay, most likely. People that have a 4-year degree earn about $37 an hour on average, and people without the degree earn about $20 per hour on average. So it is almost double that somebody with a degree can earn, but it doesn't really matter if you're swimming in student loan debt that you can't pay back like we just talked about, right? If you're making double, you're not taking home double because your taxes will be higher and you'll be taxed at a higher rate than the guy making $20 an hour. And that was always my mentality with work and school as well. Like I knew halfway through high school I wasn't going to go to college. So I didn't care about getting good grades. I just cared about graduating. And my mentality was I want to start working ASAP because I'm going to be 6 to 8 years ahead of everybody else who goes to college and gets that job. And even if they start off right out of the gate making more money than I did, well, I had 6 to 8 years to sock away cash and get ahead before then, before they even started working. And also, those 6 to 8 years later, I didn't have the debt that those people had either. And I think, in my opinion, that decision actually helped me get quite further ahead in life than other people who are stuck with that student loan debt right now. I don't have any debt except for my mortgage. And that's not meant to be a flex. It's just a lifestyle choice and decision in how I like to budget and how I like to make sure all of my bills are paid before doing anything that I can't afford to do. And I especially encourage young people today to really look at how much they enjoy going to school, and if they can stomach another 4, 6, or 8 years of it in order to get a better paying job and graduate with a lot of student loan debt, that's a huge weight on your shoulders that you got to decide if that's something you want to accept, or do you want to jump out there, start making money, eventually become an entrepreneur, start your own business, and make the same amount, if not more, than your colleagues who went to college. That's a real possibility in the United States of America. Now, one last thing is McDonald's. We've talked a lot about how the fast food industry, and particularly McDonald's, has been suffering. You know, just a few weeks ago, McDonald's revealed its sales, and they showed that it dropped 3.6% in the US and 1% worldwide. The price of fast food has gone up so much, and the value really isn't there anymore like it used to be. So if anybody wants to eat junk, at least it used to be cheap, now you got to pay a premium to eat the junk. McDonald's says that their low and middle income consumers in particular are being weighed down by the cumulative impact of inflation and heightened anxiety about the economic outlook. Yeah, no kidding. So what's McDonald's plan? Well, they have already tried bringing back the $5 meal deal and bringing back certain things for the dollar menu, stuff like that. Hasn't really moved the needle, apparently, because their sales are still falling. So now what they're looking to do instead is keep a lot of their stores open till late, or maybe even 24 hours for all of the late night stoners with the munchies. McDonald's says they're going to start keeping more of their stores open till midnight, or maybe even 24 hours to cater to hungry night owls, they're saying. Well, let's see if that's going to work out for them. It might, because if you've ever seen that Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, sometimes these late night stoners will go to great lengths to get a bite to eat. So who knows, this might be the one move that actually works out for McDonald's. Let's take advantage, especially in places where there's legal weed everywhere. We can get a bunch of people coming in late night. So we'll have to see by the end of the summer if this plan ended up working out, because so far none of their other plans to revive their business have worked out. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.